Even if you haven't played it yourself, by merely existing since August this year, you'll have heard of the phenomenon of Baldurs Gate 3 gripping the world. But did you know that Baldurs Gate has existed technically since 1968 and first being mentioned in the world of D&D in 1987? So, what's the deal with Baldurs Gate City? Will you notice any Easter eggs linked to Baldurs Gate 3? And why should you consider playing good old Dungeons and Dragons there? Let's dig in. Spoiler warning, although I'm not talking about the story covered in Baldurs Gate 3, there may be some details that spoil plot points. Good to go? Great. Well, now that that's out the way, let's start with a giant. I mean, why not, right? This giant was named Loke, and way before the creation of Baldur's Gate, the patch of land ruled by Loke was known as Loke's Fist. Only after his death did fishermen settle in that area, naming it Lokeley. Cute, right? Time goes by and Lokeley grows into a harbour settlement on the Sword Coast of Faerun, inhabited by pirates, scavengers, and ghostlighters. Ghostlighters were people who would trick ships into crashing on the rocks and then plundering the goods on board. What a fine set of people. Cue the returning seafaring hero Baldur, taking many of his found riches and ordering the construction of a giant wall to protect his home from these criminals. However, that plan changes and he leaves on another voyage, never to return. After this, local farmers took over construction of the wall to protect their lands and finish the much-loved Balduran's work. The wall brought in an influx of people in order to be kept safe. However, the wall was used to tax carts coming up from the harbour. This led to the sea captains refusing to pay and then eventually starting an uprising. The gate was breached and the farmer lords surrendered to the captains. A truce was struck and the four most senior sea captains were given leadership and the title of dukes, we'll get to them later, of the rapidly growing city now fondly known as Baldur's Gate. Of course, even though the Baldur's Gate wall was built to protect the area from crime, a lot was just driven into the shadows. One such group of criminals is simply known as the Guild. The Guild oversaw almost all crime, from lowly thugs to conmen and kingpins, with each kingpin controlling a district of Baldur's Gate and reporting to the very secretive Guildmaster. However, on the other side of the law are two factions, the Watch and the Flaming Fists. Such a dope name. The Watch act as the makeshift police in the vastly richer upper city after a second wall was built around these expanding lands. The Flaming Fists, on the other hand, pun intended, were a mercenary group comprised mostly of people who grew up in the lower and outer cities of Baldur's Gate. Others were prisoners who were given second chances at life, who now act as the city guards and military force. Once one of the most powerful fighting forces in all the Forgotten Realms, they now promote and impose order where they tread. The Flaming Fists answer to the Council of Four. Remember those Grand Dukes we established way back? Yeah. Them. They basically formed a governing body which is now comprised of 4 dukes and a Grand Duke who can break deadlocks when it comes to policy and law. Beneath them, serving as the checks and balances, is the Parliament of Peers, who represented the people and made suggestions to the dukes. This all kind of blew up when Grand Duke Valarkin tried to seize complete power using lycanthrope mercenaries, right? After that, the surviving duke dissolved the council and established the Baldurian Parliament. Speaking of great powers, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some much darker powers. I'm talking about the Dead Three. Also known as the Dark Gods, these deities were once mortal adventurers who sought the path to godhood. I mean, goals, right? Eventually achieving it, only to have it stripped away due to their own hubris. The Lord of Darkness Bane, the Lord of Murder Baal, and the Lord of Bones Merkul now walk the earth, existing somewhere between gods and mortals, with their cultists emerging every so often. As far as Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition goes, there is an official adventure module, Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. However, although it starts in Baldur's Gate, most of the adventure occurs outside of the city itself. That's my spoiler-free answer. But if it interests you, there's a link in the description to get the book yourself. Now, if the Dead 3 wasn't satiating enough for your lust for dark power, then perhaps you should click here to take a visit to Ravenloft, where the dark powers are everywhere.